Wendy Capewell, a counsellor and psychotherapist. On a daily basis, I talk to people who feel they're the only ones struggling with the issues they share with me. So each of my guests have their story to share, whether it's about themselves or in their relationships, in the hope that you feel it's not just you. So today's guest is Oli Vikse, and he is a project development champion for ANDYSMANCLUB. I really want to learn more about you, Oli, and about ANDYSMANCLUB, because I think this is such a valuable resource. So I'm going to hand over to you.
Thanks ever so much. My name's Oli. I'm a project development champion for ANDYSMANCLUB. So ANDYSMANCLUB is a male mental health and suicide prevention charity. We offer peer-to-peer support groups across the UK. We've got 56 locations across the UK, right up to the top of Scotland, all the way down to Hampshire and Devon down in the south. The groups that we run are really informal, really easygoing. They're run by members of the community. There's no professionals involved. It's, like I say, a pure peer-to-peer support group where lads coming together to help each other, listen to each other, and get stuff off the chest in a secure, non-judgmental, confidential environment.
I think that's absolutely amazing, because my experience, I mean, I've seen more and more men. I'm working with more and more men. When I started 16 years ago, it was a lot of people just didn't even know about counselling or being able to talk or speak out. And men, certainly, very few men would I say. I think they find it so hard to open up and to speak out. As we said just now, before we came on here, there's so much stigma around men and their roles and how they're supposed to act. And I think, just thinking back to those comments that you hear, even now I hear them sometimes. Oh, stop being a girl, to little, young children. Stop crying. Don't act like a girl. You're supposed to be tough. All of that is put on boys, and therefore that carries on into adulthood. They're not allowed to be emotional, and yet their female partners, they'd expect them to be emotional. So where do you go with that? So
yeah, it's a tough line to toe, really. Like I said, there are a lot of stigmas and stereotypes that we're supposed to fall into. What it means to be a man, to be tough, to be the leader of the household, to be the breadwinner. And we live in a society where everything's becoming more equal, apart from these pressures that are put onto men. So men might not be the breadwinner anymore. They might not be the head of the household. But if they're not, then they feel under pressure, or they feel burdened, or they feel embarrassed by those facts because of the stigmas that we have in society, that the man should be the breadwinner, that the man should be the head of the household. We've come so far in such a short space of time, really. Thinking back to even when we started ANDYSMANCLUB 5 years ago, there was nothing else like ANDYSMANCLUB around at that time. And I've seen over the last 5 years other sort of community groups stepping up, other social media campaigns around men's mental health and things like that. So we are making progress, but we're still so close to the start of that journey. There's still such a long way to go. I'd love to live in a world where ANDYSMANCLUB didn't need to exist, where men had these conversations at home, had them in the workplace, in the pub with the friends. But we're nowhere near that point at the moment. Until we get there, we'll keep doing what we're doing.
Yes, and there is such a need for it. I agree. Unfortunately, suicide is on the increase, and there are large numbers of men who are taking their lives because they feel. And I think the thing with suicide is, it's not people want to die, it just is the pain of what they're going through is so great, and they feel often that their families and friends around them will be better off without them, which is really sad.
That's it. Yeah, there's sort of an isolation that comes along with the depression, a worthlessness. You feel like you're a burden on your family. You feel like you're a burden on society, and you might feel like the best thing to do is remove yourself from the equation, as painful as that might be. And well, one thing that I'd like to say on that matter is that that's a symptom. That's a symptom of the illness. There's no truth in that. You're not worthless. You're not a burden on your friends and family. You're not a burden on society. You're a valued member of your group, of your family, of your society. So don't let those insecurities, those pressures, those feelings get on top of you. Try and realize the truth underneath them, that it is just a symptom of an illness, and that through the right course of talking, medication, whatever it might be, everybody's different and everybody's got a different route that they need to go down. But if you find the correct route to go down, you can get better and you can better yourself.
Yeah, I agree. It is getting that help and support, and it seems that you're providing that. And you, as you said, you're mainly in the north of the country, and you're spreading, which I think is amazing, because you have, is it like drop-in meeting groups? Is that
That's right? Yeah, there's no bookings, there's no referrals or anything like that. The groups are open for any lad to come through the doors. Open every Monday from 7 till 9 p.m. The meetings start at 7, so if you try and get there a little bit before. Like I said, they're just talking groups. They're just a group of guys coming together to talk about how they're feeling, what they're going through. You don't have to have mental health problems to come down. You don't have to be feeling suicidal. You might have just had a rubbish week and want to come down and get something off your chest. You might have just had an argument with your partner and want to somewhere where you can go and talk about it without it getting back to them.
Yeah, and I think that's what's missing. That's what's been missing, especially over the pandemic, is that guys can't meet up and go down the pub and have a pint and just offload. I think women are more likely to get on the phone or get on text or get on, I don't know, Zoom call or something, even through all of this isolation. But men aren't so likely to do that. Whereas if they could meet for a pint with their mates, they don't even, as you say, it doesn't have to be heavy conversation. It could be, God, I've had a rubbish week, or she's driving me up the wall, or whatever it is, because we all feel like that at times. But it's not being able to express it and just internalizing it that causes the damage.
Absolutely. I feel like men, they might go into the pub and talk to their friends, but they're unlikely to go deeper into the problems or give away any vulnerability or talk about anything that might be embarrassing, because that'll then be used as ammunition against them when it comes to lads banter and having a joke and a laugh and things like that.
Very good point.
So we put up these walls, we put up these barriers. We might give a little bit away, but we don't really ever tell the full story. You know, there's the banter side of it, but also you want to be respected by your mates. You want to be seen as a good laugh, and you don't want to go to the pub and be seen as somebody who brings the mood down all the time by talking about the problems. And these sorts of, like I said, stigmas and preconceptions of what we need to do and how we need to act, not just around our friends, but around other people in general, are not healthy. They're not healthy at all. So we provide men with somewhere where they can go and they can be themselves without putting up those barriers or boundaries, without putting up those self-defense mechanisms, and just be open and honest with themselves and the other guys in the room.
Yeah, I think shame is a huge one, isn't it? I think that sense of shame is a really big and distressing emotion to have, that feeling, as you say, that, yeah, getting teased, men especially, as you say, they're worried. And it does happen, doesn't it?
It does,
you know, too well, that men will, they'll find something and then torment somebody else because they've shown a vulnerability, which is sad. But that's another sign of insecurity. But
It's pointing out other people's flaws because you're trying to cover up your own, I suppose. So I've played rugby for pretty much my entire life. So I've been well and truly involved with that circle of lads culture and taking the mick out of each other and stuff. And I've learned through trying to and failing that I can't talk to those guys. If I do talk to them about any of my issues, next time we're in the changing rooms and everybody's having a laugh, that'll come back and bite me in the backside.
yeah.
And so to have somewhere where I can go and be myself, and I know that it's there on a weekly basis. Over the last 5 years, it's helped me no end. It really has.
Well, whereabouts? What kind of places do you meet in? What kind of establishments are they?
Basically anywhere that donate the space to us. So it could be community halls, it could be sports clubs. We've got some in libraries, in football clubs, football stadiums, all sorts, really, all sorts.
Okay. Again, I think that's quite useful to know, because I think people can get put off, especially if they're, I don't know, some places there are church halls and things, and I think that can, people need to know, because they might find that a bit daunting, or knowing the kind of places, because I think, well, I don't know if I want to go there because someone might see me, or it might feel a bit threatening, even the location. So yeah, useful to know.
We do try to avoid religious buildings because obviously we're open to any man over the age of 18. So if we're using a building that belongs to one faith, it might put barriers to members of other faiths or communities that are coming down to the club. So we avoid, there's only two places really that we do avoid, and that's anywhere where there's an open bar for obvious reasons there, or religious buildings because of the barriers that it could put up for other people.
Right, thanks for that. Well, you also, that you're not everywhere yet, which is, you need to get everywhere. We know that is so needed. But what can you provide for those guys who aren't in the locations? What can you provide for them?
So we are getting there. We've opened, we've nearly doubled the amount of clubs that we have got in a physical location in the last 12 months. But for anybody who falls outside of those catchment areas, we've got a national online presence as well. So no matter where you are in the country, you can join the sessions online. The online sessions run exactly the same as the face-to-face sessions, except, obviously we're on the screen instead of in person. So there's no booking on for the face-to-face sessions. With it being a physical location, you can just go and drop in at 7 o'clock and that's fine. But obviously for the online sessions, you need a link, and we need to organise things like that. So if you wanted to join the online sessions, if you just email info@andysmanclub.co.uk, then the ladies in the office can get you booked onto the session, and they'll send you out the link on a Monday afternoon.
Okay, that's good to know. And is it run on Zoom?
It's Google Meets.
Google Meets. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question here, because I think sometimes people can feel maybe a little shy when they go online. Are they able to turn off their video?
They can. However, we'd ask that we'd prefer if they kept it on.
Yeah, of course. But I'm just thinking
everybody else there as well.
Yeah.
They might feel shy and insecure, but the rest of the lads do as well. If somebody's got the video on, you don't really know if they've not got the video on, you don't really know what's going on in the background or anything like that.
No, that's very true. I agree. It was just, I thought I'd ask the question because I know, for example, AA, they have online support groups, and I was speaking to a client. I know that she said that she could turn off the video, which made her feel safer. So it's just needing to know, really, because I think then you know what you're getting into.
That's it. One thing I would say on that matter is that everybody that'll be in that meeting has been there for the first time before, so they'll understand your nerves, your anxiety, and if you're shy, you don't have to say anything. There's no pressure to talk. The conversation is guided by a few questions, which have a brief introduction to talking. A simple question like, how's your week been? Which means you don't have to give too much vulnerability away. You don't have to expose yourself too much to begin with and start off with. But as you listen to other people within that session, their honesty and openness will encourage you to be honest and open as well. But there's no pressure to talk. If you want to skip on any of the questions, you can just say, I don't want to answer that one today. That's fine.
I think that's really good as well, because I think even when I work with clients, I understand that they have to I have to earn their trust for them to be able to be vulnerable and speak up and tell me how they're feeling, or so it takes a while to build that trust and feel able to be vulnerable. So yeah, that's really, really useful to know. So I'm curious, would you be willing to share how you got into this? What encouraged you to make that move?
So I actually attended the very first session of ANDYSMANCLUB just over 5 years ago. I've known Luke Ambler, who founded the organisation, since we were kids through playing rugby and stuff like that. And I'd seen that following the death of his brother-in-law, he wanted to set up these coffee groups for men to attend. I was in a really, really difficult place at that point in time. So sort of the 12 months prior to that, I had split up with the mother of my first child and sort of moved out of the family home. I spent about 8 months sofa surfing. I was homeless for that time. I didn't have a fixed address. And it was just before I found ANDYSMANCLUB that I'd moved into my own flat. So I had my own space once again. But what I found during that time was that I wasn't used to my own company. I'd been either with my family, or when I was sofa surfing, I was with friends or with other family. So when I had to come home from work on an evening and sit in this flat by myself with nothing but my own thoughts, I found it really, really difficult. And I actually ended up in the pub most nights, just to be around other people, to have some company. And obviously, that's not a great way of dealing with my problems. I found quite quickly that was a path that I didn't need to pursue any further. I was showing up either, late to work or hungover, phoning in sick. So at that point, I actually took some time off work to deal with my mental health. And during that period, I found ANDYSMANCLUB. And that very first night that I went down, it was a really strange experience. I went down knowing that I had things that I wanted to talk about. And Luke threw me the ball. None of us really knew what to expect that evening. It was the first session and none of us knew how it was going to go. There were 9 lads there. Luke threw me the ball and I just started talking about all of these things that I'd never spoken to anybody about before, all the things that I've just spoken to you guys about, but also little things that I didn't even know that were bothering me at the time. But they obviously were, because they all came falling out of my mouth. And I passed the ball on to the guy on my right, and he did exactly the same. And so it had been around all 9 of us. And we realised at the end of the session just how powerful a group we had there. And we knew that we needed to spread it as far and wide as we possibly could. So from there, after attending for a few weeks, I'd noticed massive strides in my own mental health. I'd gone back to work. Within a couple of months, I actually got a promotion at work. I started facilitating the main group in Halifax, which is where we started. So I was running that for about 4 years. And then in September last year, I actually took on full-time employment with ANDYSMANCLUB. So it's been a massive journey for me.
What a fantastic story. Amazing. Thank you for sharing that. And I think I picked up so much from that. It's just allowing ourselves to open up. It is huge. And I don't think people recognize how powerful it is to be able to speak out and share. But also, I think it's that side of it. You stop feeling so isolated and so alone, because you notice that there are other people going through the same thing, or exactly. Similar. And that is really comforting. So I think, so there's a lot there.
Even if they're not going through slightly different problems, or it might not be the same issues, the feelings that emanate from those issues tie in with a lot of the other feelings in the room. So usually on a Monday night, we have anywhere between 5 and 30 lads in a room across the country. And the wealth of experience within those groups, you can guarantee if you're speaking about one problem, there'll be somebody in the room who's had an experience of that And just being able to speak to somebody who's been through something similar or something that makes them feel the same way, it's really powerful. It's really empowering. It's really comforting. Like I said, because of that isolation, that feeling, to know that other people are going through something similar or feeling the same way, it just makes you feel like you're not on your own, and that it normalizes it a little bit, because that's one of the main things that we all go through these problems. Do you know what I mean? We've all got times in our lives when we're struggling, and there's nothing shameful about that. It's just human nature. So not everything's not always going to be rosy, but it's how we deal with those moments, and to realize that you're not on your own and that everybody goes through things like this and it is normal. It's really comforting, and it makes you feel like less of an outcast, less like there's something wrong with you specifically.
And I noticed that you talked about mental health, and I think so many people are worried about that stigma of mental health, and yet the way of you, it's emotional health, and you can't detach your emotions from your physical health. We're attached with our spinal cord. The whole thing is connected, and I think people worry so much that if you talk about mental health, there are a lot of words and feelings that come up for that. And we all need, I think people are talking much more about mental health, but I think there's been so much stigma attached to even that people are scared of it. And they worry that, well, you can't see it, so there must be something really, really wrong. And then people get worried about being off sick with mental health issues, or anxiety, stress, depression, because others can't see it. They're fearful that they're going to be judged, which is really wrong. You can't detach the two. You just can't.
No, they're both as important as each other, aren't they? If you broke your arm, you'd go to the hospital, you'd get a pot on and you'd get it treated. If you've got poor mental health or you're struggling, you need to get that treated in just the same way. Go speak to your doctor, go speak to a support group, whoever it might be. But it's not something that you should have to or should try to deal with on your own, because 9 times out of 10, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you've kind of endorsed that really firmly, because it is, the longer we struggle on our own, I think the worse it does get. And then we're going to be affected in a lot more ways, physically and emotionally. It's a case of, I described it to a couple of youngsters recently and said, what would happen if you kept your hairdryer plugged in 24 hours full on? This, well, it would get very, very hot, and the chances are it would blow up. And I said, well, that's what happens if we don't deal with our mental health. You will get to a point where your body said that's enough, and it will just stop us.
And I think that's why we have a lot of men in their 30s and 40s who, suffering with mental breakdowns, because they've spent their entire life bottling everything up. But there's only so much that you can take. There's only so much that you can bottle up before it explodes. And if you've been doing that for your entire life, you get to a point in your life where you just can't do it anymore.
Mm.
Obviously some people go through that cycle a lot earlier, depending on their resilience and what they've actually gone through. But the statistics are that suicide is the biggest killer of men under the age of 55. And
that's really
as a man under 55 myself, it's a terrifying concept.
It is.
3/4 of all suicides in the UK are male, and there's a definite link between our connection with ourselves and our emotions and our ability to open up and those statistics.
Definitely. Yes, that's very kind of sobering thoughts at such large numbers. And I'm so pleased that your group is doing so much work to help men with those situations. It's great. So keep up the good work. And I hope you expand more and more, and I would certainly put the word out as well. So what's one thing you would suggest? What could one person take away? What right now, whether it's a man or a woman, whether it's a partner, whether it's a mum, whether it's sister, or whether it's a guy or a brother or a friend, what is one thing that people could take away with them?
Reach out, speak to somebody. You don't have to, anything that you're going through at the moment, you don't have to deal with it on your own. In fact, trying to deal with it on your own is probably the least productive way of dealing with it. It's, it's an old adage, but it's true. A problem shared is a problem halved. Just find somebody that you can talk to, whether it's somebody within your family, whether it's a friend, whether it's your doctor, whether it's a support group, a community. Find somebody to speak to and share those problems with them, and listen to their problems as well, because like I said earlier, everybody's going through something at some point in their life. They might have already been through something similar to what you're going through, or they might have something on the horizon and you might be able to help them. But have those open conversations, be open and honest with yourself. Don't try and bottle it up, because inevitably, if you do, it's going to explode at some point.
Great advice there. I'm going to put all the details, all the contact details for Andy's Man's Club in the show notes. But what is one easy way that people can find Andy's Man's Club?
If you check out our website, which is www.andysmanclub.co.uk, there's all our contact details and information on there. Or you can email info@andysmanclub.co.uk.
I hope you found this episode interesting as well as helpful. Do get in touch if you would like to learn more about working with me. My email address is info@wendycapewell.co.uk. Take good care of yourself. Until next time.